was a small group who worked very hard to try and synthesize and pull out the essence to the best that they could about the just some ideas for the Philadelphia Declaration. And we will let Marijn, as Jean here, and Jean.
So fortunately, we had very little reading to do this afternoon while you were taking the oaths at the museum. Basically, where we started is that we picked up 3 very strong signals. And I think the first very strong signal was what we really like to do when we're here together is we like to study together. And the second very strong signal, and Jean is going to help me out here if I miss something. I think the second very strong signal is that we need to send a message out there in the world in today's language, using today's media. And the third very strong message, I think, is we need to address today's issues. That makes sense. Then it makes sense coming together as an ITC and working on that. And of course, we're not another theosophical organization. So when we do that, we need to do it in order to strengthen the theosophical organizations that are out there in their work. And preferably, of course, when we do it working together, because working together, we're a lot stronger. So we would like to present to you at least the first draft of the Philadelphia Declaration. Here it is, and we're welcome, looking forward to your feedback. So we commit ourselves to facilitate the creation of working conferences, harnessing the unique geniuses of various theosophical streams. So basically, this means that we have the idea that this is a new step or a new phase in what ITC is doing. For the last couple of years, we've been dancing together. We've been getting to know each other again. We've been learning to trust each other again. We've been learning each other's traditions, and especially in those traditions, what Jonathan called the genius. So we have, throughout the years, developed certain talents, certain strengths, certain preferences, and we should acknowledge those. We should use those. We should learn from each other to get better at those things, and that's the genius that you see here. And how are we going to do that? So instead of having presentations, workshops, and maybe come up with something in the end, we wanted to take some more concrete steps to do something to actually lend service to mankind. So the first step would be that together we would need to identify suffering or hot topics, issues that need addressing from a theosophical perspective. And of course, we cannot do 10 in 1 year, but maybe for starters next year it could be one issue. And the next step is that we study and contemplate the theosophical teachings and from those select the relevant principles. So throughout the year, even before the conference starts, we would like study groups all over to start working together in selecting reading material, working together on getting out theosophical ideas. But what are we talking about here? What would be relevant? And then when we get together, the first phase will be studying. Just studying, no presentations, because basically what we see here in harvest sessions is, well, everybody likes to do a mini presentation. So why don't we just sit together and have study circles and do all those mini presentations in those study circles? And in that first step, we're going to figure out, okay, so from a theosophical perspective, what's relevant here? What are the principles here? And once we've selected those principles, we need to translate those into modern language and put them into the relevant context. When we've done that, from there we need to figure out how we can develop pure and simple applications or products. Things that, tools, we don't know exactly how to formulate or what's coming out of it yet, but let's say applications for now that the different theosophical organizations, individuals, branches, whatever you want to call it, all over the planet can use. And the last step will be that we go out and inspire, encourage, or facilitate theosophical branches or organizations to enter the arena, to offer these solutions, so that what we do together gets an effect, preferably all over the planet, for the year, say year after. And then there was a very nice suggestion that since we are here in Philadelphia, we finish up with Thomas Paine. We have it in our power to begin the world over again. That's a good start. Yeah, critique. Maybe we can start with some positive comments, some things you like about this, some things you recognize. Who would like to say something? Great.
One thing I like about it is that it's working together on something that's immediately necessary, because I think then people, by shoulder to shoulder working on something, they have brotherhood. It's one of the most unifying things is having a project together.
Excellent. Yeah, having a project together. Brotherhood in action. Who else? All right. Richard, please.
So I'm not clear. Again, with the study groups, you're saying that you would actually start off with someone teaching the various study groups and going back and forth and going through a particular subject, or presenting it first year and then going like we did before?
So first we identify a subject. Then in the course of the year, that's the idea right now, we start to gather material that we can study related to that subject. We do that already before the conference. So we have for this conference and the previous year, we have reading material already here. We can put it on a website. We have the stuff gathered. So we come to the conference prepared. So we can step into the study circles more or less immediately because we know why we're here, right? And then we study, we contemplate, and after we've done that, after we have a thorough understanding, especially by studying together, of what we're talking about, we start looking at, okay, so how do we translate that to that specific situation? And how do we do that using today's language? And how do we do that using today's language, taking into account the circumstances of this particular situation? And from there, we go into, okay, if this is the circumstances, if this is the teachings, how do we apply them here? And this application, how can we make a product out of that that can be used to actually solve, I shouldn't use the word solve, but I should use the words offer a solution, right? Because people are at liberty of using that to actually do something about that situation.
Who does this? In other words, these are all things, the way you go about them. But who's responsible for facilitating it? Is this something that we do once a year? Or is this something that is worked on by the board?
That's a very good question.
Who does these wonderful things?
So as a board, I think we do the setup, we create the platform, and in an ideal situation, we go to something called, what was that word again, Gene? What are we going to do all over? You have something that keeps popping up. It's like a reincarnating thought.
I can't read your mind today. Is it about that communication and cross-pollination and
not just here.
yeah? Everywhere.
Everywhere. How do we do that?
Okay, so theoretically, and again, you guys have to help me out because I'm still fried. I have a major headache from that meeting. But
you're welcome.
If we're identifying all of these, and let's say we've got 10 hot topics, the one thing that always resonates in my mind is at the end of the Mahat Chohan's letter, we are challenged to understand that Theosophy has the answer to every problem. So in these articles, whether we're committing, we have to commit to work together offline. We have to commit to work together amongst the different traditions to bring in the genius. That's something that we've got to do. ITC can facilitate, can stimulate, can inspire, but the actual work that's being done is amongst all of us together, and then bringing out those particular products.
Marijn mentioned that the past couple years we've had readings that have been sent out ahead of time via the web. We've had an opportunity to read through these readings. This new declaration implies that we must do our work ahead of time. How do you feel about having homework to do?
At what point, time-wise, are we into action?
That's part of the headache, wasn't it? Because, and again, I mean, if we're looking at A, B, C, D, and E, each step is getting closer to action. So theoretically, if everyone is doing their homework, everyone is communicating, everyone is sharing, you're getting the headache before you come in. And then the second headache is really working it through and translating it into everyday language. And once we've got that translation, putting it in context, then we can look at creating, the way I look at the metaphor is, once we've got the active principal ingredients, we can package it in a pill that the public can take, for example, for depression, that contains all of those principles that then each one, when they go, has the opportunity to apply. Or the other thing that we spoke about briefly was, do we do it here? Do we actually begin, like last year in Santa Barbara, we discussed after the conference going out into the community. You had that idea, we were not ready for that idea even this year because you wanted to do things after the conference in terms of the homeless, etc. If we're doing this right, perhaps that's the next step, that's the next application to see Theosophy in action.
So hypothetically, that could be on day 4 or 5. That together we take the first action steps. So there's study, there's work on the applications, and then there's service. And we could start doing that service immediately on the last day, for instance, of the conference.
So this would be at the end of next year's conference.
Yes.
Um,
But not stopping there. So from there, we're going to send it out into the world. We're going to take it back with us in our a little bit emptier suitcases because we sold all the books. And this is what we take home, and this is what we start spreading. And in that ideal world, we have delegates, that's the word I was looking for. We have people locally, and that might be you, who start looking up other theosophists, maybe from other organizations as well, working together on the same theme, using the applications that we develop together. So it doesn't stop there. It only starts there. It can continue for the whole year or maybe even longer. But in the course of the next year, we're going to focus again on a different theme and start developing something together. Is that answer to your question?
Well, yeah, it sounds great. It sounds great. My only, you know my issue, we talked about it before, is we're talking and talking and talking.
Just a second.
And
we're talking, and we want action. Yeah, great. And that is basically what we're trying to say here in this next phase. We danced together for a long time, it's time for action.
So I'm trying to envision how we could, how the ITC can facilitate identifying suffering and hot topics. Does this mean that the ITC website will have a place where people can submit suggestions about what they think are relevant topics that could be explored from a theosophical perspective. And if they've thought about it, also supplement it with some ideas, readings, you know, that kind of thing.
That's exactly the idea we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we can ask you, come up with some, you say problems or things that needs attention. We can make a list. We can do the evaluation before we come here. We can make an assignment. We can start to search for readings, so everybody can be prepared over here.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can work together from the different traditions, so that we are enriching the whole approach, working out to a practical solution, material, what you can hand out, what you can bring to other people. So that is the complete idea.
Yeah, because I was thinking, Joanna mentioned, for instance, euthanasia as a topic, a hot topic. And
there are more.
Yeah, but I mean, just as an example. So,
Yeah.
The fact that perhaps in different traditions, these topics have already been examined. And so a website would be a place where we could say, here's an article from, that's great.
Yeah, but
Great.
what we like to see on the conferences is that if we work together from the different traditions, that the total work package will be enriched by the different traditions. Yeah, every tradition has its strong point. So if we bring it all together, we exchange it with each other, we can deliver a better product than we do it on our own.
A little pamphlet that is the...
Yeah, that is something to start with. Yeah.
Thank you.
And can I just, one of the things that is not clear but maybe implicit, because we were looking at that, what works. And that's part of the genius of each of the traditions, because each, as well as the independents, have techniques that work. So part of facilitating that is also understanding the techniques that are going to be used to carry that forth outside. So that's also part of the package, although it may not be teased out if we just look at the word genius, but it's part of the genius.
I noticed there's an asterisk by the word arena, and I'm wondering what arena that might be. And I had this...
Or by David, who started it yesterday, coming up with it.
I had this backwards idea of, instead of starting with presentations, if we, after we do all of our work together, when you said we start our work immediately and getting into action, I pictured advertising wherever we happen to be, that on our last day of the conference, we open the doors and we let everyone in and we do our presentations to people in the world, online.
We
Advertise, put banners, and like on our Sunday or our last day, invite the public in.
Or we invite a specific audience. If we're treating, for instance, with a homeless audience, we invite people who work in that area. Yeah.
Everyone, open the doors and let them come in and do our presentation on our last day to the world. And take our videos, put them, advertise them online and through the internet. If everyone here told someone to watch, it could be a great way to kick off our action and get to work.
It's good that you see the picture. Great. Yeah.
Can I ask a technical question? Last year, the speakers heard at such a late time what was asked from them, which subject to prepare. And then we had only a very short time to prepare a lecture. This year it was much better. We heard it much earlier. And then that gave the opportunity to study for half a year to do it good. And my suggestion is choose that hot topic as soon as possible, dear board.
Thank you for the suggestion, and it's taken into account. We're actually working on a calendar so we can make sure that we do that every year. Thank you.
actually the speakers will get the assignment much later. If you understand the process over here, then the first thing is to identify, to work together, to create text, to create theosophical ideas, to translate it in modern words and in modern examples. And then on the end, we are ready to present something. I think that will be a late night for us.
No, that is not what I mean. I mean, identify the hot topic so that we can start preparing as soon as possible.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's say tomorrow or even this evening, we can come up already with a number of subjects. And then in the coming month, people can send ideas and so on. And then the board can make a priority list of whatever. Yeah.
Small point from Irma. Point, an extra point, point F. Continuous process of evaluation, a kind of feedback.
Great. Very good point. Yeah.
That's not what you said when I said it.
Now.
Oh yeah, you.
This was in the Quaker tradition. Use as few words as possible.
Just to clarify, please, and B, when you end selecting the relevant principles, is that a reference to A? I mean, what are the relevant principles? Whatever
to
it
the
is,
topic,
to
yes.
the hot topics
Exactly,
in A.
yeah.
Okay, I just wanted that clarified.
That was the other headache too.
Any other clarifications or feedback? Yes?
Could I try that one? We were trying to have the idea that B would be the beginning third of any given conference would be study circles. So first A, you pick your hot topic for the conference. B, you try to find relevant teachings, paragraphs, sentences that have generally to do with the topic. And you make study circles and you study that reading material, and it's published online beforehand. And you think about the material in the abstract. You don't just dive straight into fixing the world's problems. You enjoy the philosophy, the philosophical foundations of the subjects first. Keep it pure. Then you move into C and D. It's like you contemplate before you apply. That was the theory of it.
We might even be silent sometimes, right? Again, in the Quaker tradition. Was a good suggestion.
And I'm sorry, Jim, you can have it first, Jim.
Behind you. Yeah.
See, well, I just want to understand that. We are all, in the next short period of time, going to do this on our own and then submit it to some place. And then it will go online.
Yeah, so we do our preparation on our own or with our study group, or perhaps if you reach out to other study groups in the area, you prepare together, you submit materials together, then you come to the conference, and then we start mixing up in studying circles and exchanging our perspective
So
on what we
theoretically,
prepared.
these things would filter in all during the year.
Exactly. So we have a long preparation for all of the speakers who are not really speakers but participants in the study circles.
Again, perhaps we can emphasize that an ulterior motive for this is to really have everyone working together. Because one of the things that we kept stumbling over was that A, B, C, and D are really about us. It's about breaking down the barriers. It's about learning a common language. It's about sharing the genius that exists amongst us to kind of equilibrize, not make it the same, but then using the understanding as well as the methods in a meaningful way in E, and then perhaps, as they preferred your F, you know, taking it out, or doing that right after the conference, but making it real. Because as it has been said, I guess there's a lot of talking heads, mine included, that take away from the actual application and getting things done. And really that's where Theosophy needs to be in the world now, the getting it done piece. So hopefully that's part of what ITC is stimulating and helping to happen amongst all of the groups.
I think this is a wonderful effort, and I'd love to see it develop. My concerns are that whenever you have a topic and a theme that's fairly practical and socially oriented, it's a little narrower than the general Theosophy. And some people may say, well, that's not my favorite theme, I won't come this year. So it's really choosing that theme that has a very broad interest will be great. I'm thinking maybe we have two different themes for some, or two parts to the theme, so that it can involve different ways of thinking or different interests of different people. And then the other thing I like, of course, the earlier start as possible, even almost continuous. And that gives us a chance to think at home and also to involve our lodges. And maybe that's what you mean when you say study groups. I understand study circle is sort of here what we do.
Oh, your lodges, your study groups, whatever you call
good.
them back home. Yeah, include them. Absolutely.
And wherever possible, we can then coordinate with other theosophical organizations in the area. So
both in preparing, Garrett, but also in bringing it back what we've done together.
And of course, this year it's hard to start, so I would at least agree with Yoka that I think to make it even practical for the first one, it would be wonderful to get the actual materials or the topic 3 months ahead. Because then we have time to talk to people, to learn and do some research on our own, which makes it richer.
That's registered. Thank you. Yep. Kim.
One concern I have about what I like, that it's a project, we're working together, is just the need to remember that a given amount of energy on a spiritual plane is productive of far more results than that same energy on the physical plane. And that it's really important that we keep in mind to have the ratio of the unmanifest to the manifest be far greater on the unmanifest plane, because it's, that's where the real work is. And just that we remember that and not get caught all up in physical manifestations.
How would we do that, Kim?
I think in our own individual organizations or independent study, that's the actual work of Theosophy in our lives, making it a living power through that inner meditative practice. And it's so critical. I think the benefit of a project that we're working on together is that it creates brotherhood because we're doing something together. But the real activity may be on a different plane altogether.
Thank you for clarifying that. Sure, please.
One reaction that I might have to that would be, and also this idea about getting so that we know what we're doing early enough so that it's not a big surprise at the last minute about everything, would be to identify early A. Get that done the next month or something, as early as we can, right? Then put out to the membership a request for reading material that could have to do with that right away. We give that some time to gestate, 3 months or something, maybe more. Then we start, in other words, we request the reading material, we put it online, okay, so then that has a chance to gestate, and people are reading it and studying it. Then maybe February or March or sometime throughout more ripening in the season, we start requesting C and D and so forth. so that by the time August comes back around, we've done some preparation. Does that seem like, is that an implementation of what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to make a calendar, make sure that we do that in a certain rhythm every year. And of course, when we do this the first time, we're going to learn by doing it, and we're going to make mistakes together. And that's why we need the feedback loop, so we keep learning from that. So it's also going to be a learning experience and an experience to grow together as a brotherhood. So, yep. Yes, please.
So I'm a little unclear about A. It says hot topics with an S. So to me, that means people can send in a variety of topics, and then it doesn't have to be narrowed down to only one topic unless every single member sends in the same topic, which
it doesn't have to be.
But
no?
it could be 2 or 3 or 4. You know, I think the point about people going, well, I'm not really interested in that, I'll skip it.
Yeah,
You know, if we
exactly.
had a little bit of variety, that might.
Like Garrett just said, I
Yeah.
think for the first time, perhaps we need to have a little bit of a narrow focus, so maybe 1, 2, or 3, and then we need to see where we go from there.
Yeah.
If
But
there's-
this would all be available for people to look at
Exactly.
online and comment and say, you know, I'm passionate about this idea.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
one of the challenging questions is to identify a hot topic or various hot topics that are relevant for all of us.
Yeah.
They need to be addressed by all of us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So again, to clarify for me, again, what Garrett and you were saying, you wouldn't have a general theme originally. It would depend on what topics are brought up, and then this would be the various themes of the conference rather than one general theme?
Yes.
Okay.
Making it, I'm
Could you
just
repeat
saying
that?
that the general theme in general is making Theosophy practical, making it real, applying it. And so it's just an opportunity to really put our money where our mouths are.
And I think there's also an opportunity here that as we develop these potential solutions to our project theme, that we take these techniques home with us. We've learned how to work together. We can take that technique home and work together in our groups at home and then grow in that way. Different topics, different issues, but we've learned how to apply the applications to a problem. We develop those applications. We know how to develop them. We take it home. We develop new ones for new problems.
And I'm thinking about what Kim said, but in terms of application, John was using an example of the homelessness and just needing socks, and maybe that's all they need. Maybe that's all they want, but there are other people around the person that needs the socks that may also benefit. So when we're talking about an application, it's not necessarily just a physical application, as you were, in a sense, insinuating. It can be higher because there are people that approach solutions from a mental side or a cognitive side. There are people that have passion and emotion. So when we're really looking at how to apply this, we're really looking at it from a sevenfold perspective in essence. And so we have to be complete. And so every aspect or every principle of that healing process, we're trying to look at to make practical.
I would like to understand this correctly. When you take one of these topics, it's going to be one that everyone that has come together are going to commit to regardless of what that one be. Because that's the first statement that's up here. We commit ourselves. So I don't know how you're going to select what the hot topic is going to be. But I would think that you're saying everyone is going to commit to whatever is decided, however you decide it to be.
And we haven't figured out how to do that yet. But of course, we need your input to do that, right? Is that?
Part of that we commit in the beginning was also from the perspective of ITC. So you can almost superimpose ITC as what we represent is committing to help all of the traditions facilitate by working together the creation of solutions that can be used in the world, so to speak. So on the one hand, there is the individuals, the groups, the traditions. On the other hand, there is what ITC, which is not giving out Theosophy as an organizational entity, would do, but ITC as, in a sense, the enzyme that's bringing everything together to extract that dynamic medicine that can be applied. So we're just trying to get all of the minds and hearts together, and we're facilitating that, or we're trying to facilitate that, to bring everybody together in one nuclear space so that the purpose of that nucleus in terms of providing the information that heals the cell, i.e. society, the nation, the globe, or creating the world over again, can be pulled out and utilized. So again, there's two pieces, the ITC piece that facilitates, and then we're committing to that as ITC. Each individual and organization has to commit to doing that as well. So it's kind of a two-way street there.
Will there also be an opportunity for the streams to submit work that's already being done or that has been done so that we can maybe expand, learn from, and take
That's the whole idea. Because everybody comes here with all those best practices, and then we leave back, and very often we go back to what we've been doing before. So actually, yeah, that's one of the first steps.
And will we be able to see, have the documentation or some way that we can see before we come here what other
Yeah, that's the whole idea. So put it up on the website and start preparing
all
on
right,
it.
because I heard about readings, lots of readings, which I'm very good at
Yeah.
studying. I'm a good student.
As early as possible. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Could I mention something? I was wondering what it says to harness the unique genius, but what if it said harness the unique experience, strength, and genius of the various, because that would tie in what she just said. Harness the unique experience and genius of the various theosophical streams.
Yeah.
It might pick up what she said.
Erwin is typing. That's a good point. April?
This is just questions about how it could work or would work or if it will work. Because these groups are in all different states and the organizations have different programs going already. And some of them are small groups, study groups. Some of them are pretty cohesive, maybe not so. So they're all in different states. So I could see a group like Santa Barbara going to it, you know, because they have heavy commitment with each other. But a smaller group somewhere else might be not very able to organize that, or they might have already something going and feel like they can't add anymore. They can't
Do you have
take on
any organizations in mind, April?
Well, it just seems to me it's not a big web right now. It's not a big web of
Absolutely.
groups.
It's something we have to try. And maybe if you look at this, this is from the inside out. But when you look at it from the outside in, wouldn't it be wonderful if out in the world you can see at different spots that there's a joint effort going on?
Well, and I think one of the, so that some groups may not be able to participate on the front end.
Yeah.
But some groups may benefit from the tail end.
Absolutely.
Where all these things come out and they go, oh, we could use that in our group because it's been, tested here.
And my expectation is that once they start doing it, they want to get involved on the front end as well. That is probably how it will work.
So a secular sort of process.
Even an individual could use that. You could, I mean, if you have a group, wonderful, but if you are alone, you can do the same. So, and submit your ideas and your way of looking at it, identify a problem, everything.
Then we get back to the challenge of how we put it out there in the world on as many platforms as possible so people can find it. Garrett?
I think we have a pretty good feeling for this and consensus. My concern is just the final declaration itself. I think it's a little awkward for at least me as a reader and editor and I guess a lawyer. And there's some grammatical small errors that most people wouldn't notice, but I think we could make this a little more elegant in terms of editing if we still have time.
We would love to have your suggestions. Yeah,
oh, well.
and not just today, but also after today. No, that will be great. That would be great.
And the other question is, do we really want, I know it's declaration, we're in the city of declarations, but we might want to think about whether that still fits.
Yeah, we want wording for that as well, because we started working and we said, but it has to be a declaration. Well, forget about the declaration. Let's define what we want to do next. And the wording for how we call that. Do you have any suggestions, Garrett?
Well, if I were presenting it to my lodge, I think they'd like it to sound like a proposal that they could, have some input or agree on, or just, it's like a suggestion sometimes has so much more power. I think the declaration is almost what we end up with after we do all the study and we declare some plan or principles that we want the world to hear.
Okay.
But I mean, if you want to call it declaration, it has a lot of appeal in terms of, catching people's attention. So I'm just throwing that out.
And any suggestions, so after today, of how to call it are very welcome. Also in the wording, because this is the rough draft version #1. Joke, there's a microphone next to you. Yeah.
Can I react on that? It is not said that theosophists outside this conference have to commit themselves. We are talking about us. Do we commit ourselves after everything we heard the past days about compassion and about our responsibility and all those things? And then we ask ourselves, do we commit ourselves? And then we go out and ask people, do you want to work with me? And we don't force them to commit. But do we commit ourselves? And that is a different story. And I think that this is a very good text for that.
Thank you, Joke. All right.
All of this sounds really good to me. And one thing that I would maybe suggest is give an example, say like depression. Homeless people have an interest in depression. Homeopaths have an interest in depression. People from Europe are telling us there's a huge depression problem over there. We have a healthcare crisis in this country. So give us an example of how that'll go together.
You mean now or when we send this out?
When you send it out, so that people have something concrete to kind of spin off of. And I'm just saying that one particular one because it's broad enough so that it could interest everybody.
That's a very good example because it came
it
up when we were
covers
discussing
Europe.
it. Yeah.
It covers our European half. It's not just an American, kind of an issue.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Good suggestion. All the clarification questions that we had here, we need to involve that in the example we give.
In this conference, the aspect of healing in the subject or the title was, for instance, by Johanna explained as preventing the suffering, preventing the, well, the chaos in the world and the problems in the world. I'm a little bit concerned. Now we are focusing on the solution, on the results of the problems. Do we combine the focus we have now on the effects, the result from suffering, with preventing it? Do you understand?
Could you give an example of where that would apply?
Well, we can focus on a problem, but do we also
so to take the example of depression, for instance, what can you do to prevent the depression?
Yeah, sometimes it was called several times, but what do we do with the preventing aspect of the problem? That's what I'm asking myself.
Good point. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's where you drifted off as well.
Yeah, because we had a wonderful conversation that was so loving about, in a sense, that issue. Because on the one hand, we're talking about serving, treating, and there was a big discussion about the cause, and yet the idea of prevention, I believe, and this is at least the position that I had taken, if we've got somebody that's hungry, first we feed them. And then when they're satisfied, then we can talk. So if they've got depression and they're suicidal, we can't talk about prevention. So first we serve. After we've identified the principles that have been active in treating that condition, when they're feeling better, we can talk to them about those principles from a preventive way, in a preventive manner, i.e., most depressions are recurrent. Now that they're in a better space, we can discuss with them the principles that may minimize the recurrence, but not when they're suicidal. And so that was the other headache that we had a big discussion about. I don't think it's hidden, but it's there in terms of translating and putting it into modern language, as well as identifying the teachings and the relevant principles, because those are the preventative elements that can be used later on once the initial issue has been addressed. So again, a lot of information is, and we tried to condense it to put it implicitly in there, but what you're identifying is that sometimes it needs to be teased out and seen. So the information is there, even the prevention is there, because the prevention are the principles. And I keep going back to, you know, Yoke and Herman and the group, because when you guys go out, you're talking about principles and prevention, and it was exactly the case of depression that you were treating. So, you know, maybe you can say a little bit more about that. But again, it's about identifying those principles that are effective in minimizing the likelihood of recurrence.
Just real quickly, I was thinking about the word declaration and commitment, and the Thesaurus says commitment could also be thought of as promise or pledge, and the alliteration of P is sort of attractive, so there's suggestion the Philadelphia Pledge or the Philadelphia Promise.
Oh, great. Garrett, how do you like that? All right. So pass the first test. Promise. The promise? All right. You want to say something? Yeah. All right. They don't see it from the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
I'm trying to juggle the perceived notion of action and the work on the inner plane that is really important. And I'm thinking as far as the inner work, when we come here to ITC, it's so intense, and we're I mean the whole time. How many study groups have we had and presentations? Giving an example of the ES, you don't talk for the first year. So expanding on what Jonathan said, incorporating some more time for inner work at the ITC.
At the conference itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How do you picture that?
Time for silence. We all do the inner work in our own ways, but just incorporating time periods instead of just having all this like being hit with one thing after the other. Incorporate just time for meditation and silence to do the inner work.
As part of the program.
Yeah.
Yeah, good suggestion.
And the other thing was I wanted to take, like I can't grasp depression as a hot topic, so I wanted to take something and to take it through the process of how it would work. Homelessness is something that we have a lot of people here that we actually have practical experience on. So say we take homelessness as a hot topic, utilizing the people that are doing that now. How do we see the process of that working as a hot topic? Just take me through, like I want to take a practical example.
Like homelessness.
Yes.
Okay.
And using the people who are working in homelessness to the people who aren't, and how they could take it into their.
Well, so if you commit, you're one of us, right? So we're going to take these steps together. It's not me or Jonathan
Right.
dictating how we're going to do it. So we have to figure that out together. Jonathan, you want to say something about that? Steps?
Well, on the there's a door I could just run out. Well, I was thinking, let's say you had homelessness. If you started at the inner work level, one of the kind of abstract theosophical teachings, which is very abstract, is the idea of the anupadaka, the parentless ones. Or another one that's less abstract would be that the Mahatmas have identified us as orphan humanity. We're all orphans. In what way are we orphans? So in other words, Kim was talking about the high ratio in the universe of the invisible in relation to the visible. Start on the planes of the invisible and then work your way down. But one of the things that I just extremely admire about Point Loma people is that they're able to translate these abstract ideas into applications and practical ways of thinking. And then there's the idea of service. It all has to culminate and blossom into service. And some of the things that Helena said about, are we helping, are we fixing, or is there service? Where we are one, right? With who we are trying to serve. And then there's the idea that we become a vehicle of that service. So that might be an example of starting on the inner invisible planes, trying to work your way down throughout the ripening of the conference, maybe.
And again, I just perhaps piggybacking on Jonathan, because if we're looking at it from a universal point of view, part of that exercise is putting ourselves in the place of other. So we become homeless. And in becoming homeless, we mentally recreate, whether through visualization, through meditation, through creative thinking and imagery, whichever technique, what it really, really feels like to be. Then if we're studying, HPB has many, many articles on, like leprosy and what was going on in Philadelphia and the homelessness and what those examples of true selfless servants are. So we're looking at all of those principles that are involved in Buddhic serving, in selfless serving. Then we're looking at what are the elemental seeds in the mind that predispose to homelessness, so that we're working from within without. And how do those seeds impact our desire nature and our passional nature such that we either can't have a home or relationships, or we don't want one, because some make a choice not to have that. And then even further, when we're looking at it from that astral perspective, what are those seeds that are beginning to sprout, that are shaping the instrument that then gives us the DNA that predisposes our bodies and our brains as physical instruments to take up a course of action in the families that we're born, in the environments that we're born, at a time that we're born that contributes to that homelessness. So we're working that process depending upon how deep we want to go from within without, in order to understand, in order to experience, and in order to come together to look at solutions to that, so that when we talk with someone, it's almost as though been there, done that, know that. And if we're doing it correct, maybe in past lives we have been homeless. Maybe we've been through all of the disease, which is why we're talking about it in a way that we compassionately experience it, share it, and try to heal it. So it's just a way of bringing it, as you were saying, from within without, with identification of the different tools along the way.
Yep. So basically, the one thing I can say about it is we try to formulate positive action instead of saying what we don't want to do, and that's what we're looking for here. This is a baby that was just born, so we're all trying to picture what it's going to look like when it grows up, and I guess we have to do that part together. So it's time to take a look at 2018, right, Jonathan?
I have another little question. Maybe it's childish, but I was thinking about the word solution, or in D, or what is it, E, to offer these solutions. I find it a little bit arrogant that we can give solutions.
Like Jean said, we had a whole discussion about that.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And please send in better suggestions so we can find something that everybody can relate to. That's a big challenge with picking words sometimes.
Okay.
Oh, here's one.
No,
here's
I
one.
think we don't know the whole karma, so I thought more hints or whatever, but solutions.
Hints.
We can give.
What did you want to say?
Suggestions.
Advice.
Yeah.
To offer this advice. Tools.
No. If Theosophy is really Theosophy, we have the solution. Full stop to me. So,
if the Maha in his letter says that there is a solution for every problem in the world.
you know, that word area with the star behind it, that has really to do with the Maha letter. And I think that was taking us half an hour or something to exchange with Jean that we prefer the word area, because Jean say that is used in the Maha letter, that is something high and so on. And we say, no, that's exactly what we mean. Yeah. But I think solution is really the good word, but it is my opinion.
No, it's not anywhere out there yet. Erwin, how are we going to do that?
Yeah, we'll sure publish it on the website soon.
Maybe we have to check the wording a bit, and any suggestions for that, please help. But
Look at the draft.
yeah, well, we'll put the draft as it is on the website.
Can I give a suggestion? That star, that little star with arena, if you start that as a footnote, you can say, read the Maha Chohan letter. And then everyone can read it again and be inspired by it.
The footnote is being typed in as we speak. Very good point. Okay, can we? Yep.
I'm just thinking back to what was going on while we were all working on this, and how one of the themes was promoting Theosophy throughout the world. And I wonder if we shouldn't add that to the list in terms of the topic that we picked, that it doesn't have a very high potential to present us to the world.
So that's the objective why we do that, or that's
no, that it just be added and have it be a consideration. And,
to promote Theosophy.
Yeah, so that we get a lot of mileage out of our new, or the new way of doing things.
To promote it, basically.
Yeah.
Good point.
That the organization benefits.
All right. Thank you. So can we go to 2018? And then Herman, can you say something about 2018, or Jean, or?
You are not retired yet. First, I'd like to thank all the video people. They have to start stopping live streaming now, because we have to leave this building on 10, and they really need the time to dismantle and pack, so that we are really able to leave this building on time. Otherwise, we run into a problem. Good. I think they have done a great job. We had marvelous live streaming without interruptions and so on, so we are really happy. Yeah. Okay, 2018. Well, really not, because everything has in place. Thank you very much. But everything has in place and has to go by different persons in their suitcases and so on. So we have special lists, and we are really organized. I can tell you that to come up to this level, because our top guy on audio video was not able to come this year. So that means that this group has trained himself almost 5 long evenings or afternoons to learn to do all the bits and tricks, so that we are really we're confident in doing a good job. Yeah. So thank you very much for the offer. Sorry? Yeah, we have the good thing is we have now 5 top guys, and we know all now exactly in details how it works. So promising for next year. Okay, 2018. The board was discussing this subject. And there are some ideas, but it is not, let's say, fixed. So we are really open for ideas coming up from you guys. One of the ideas we have is going next year to Berlin. Yes. Yeah? Yeah? Oh. But still keep in mind that if you have better ideas or alternatives, please feel free. Then we can consider them in the coming board meetings and see what we are able to do. Berlin for the Netherlands is quite nearby. We are almost at home in Berlin. Once a month, one of our people give a lecture over there and support the German section. What have a lodge in Berlin and in 3 other places in German. So a very international place. You can really exercise your English very well over there, so there is no need for speaking German. And so I love the place very much. nice museums, etc.
And we get all the greetings from Jos Peters and Ria Peters as well. They were not able to come this year. So, thank you well. I hope to see you all tomorrow.